All right, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Brotherly Love in the District. Tristan here, along with Jacob. And Jacob, you want to go ahead and tell them what we're going to get into?
Yeah, this week we have some big topics to get into. First, want to look at the championship games, the NFL, which we saw one very big upset, and obviously the new name of the Washington team is the Commanders. We're going to talk about that, what each of us think of it in the jerseys. Going into the NHL, we have just gotten to the All-Star break, so we're going to talk about that, the past few games, what we hope our teams do after the break, and nothing MLB, so let's get right into it.
Yeah, so starting off with the championship games, the Bengals pull off the upset in 27-24 in overtime. Talk about overtime coming back to bite Mahomes in the butt.
Yeah, when I saw that coin toss and they called heads and it was tails, I for sure thought they were going to lose. I even said that in our fantasy football group chat. Oh, well, it's over. I was wrong. I mean, Mahomes went from doing a drive in less than 13 seconds to ruining his season in around 13 seconds, from almost throwing a pick on one of the first plays to actually throwing a pick. It was a big shock, and congrats to Bengals fans. For one, you're the best franchise in Cleveland for the past
You mean Ohio?
6 years. Ohio, not Cleveland. But yeah, I mean, it's insane to say that the Bengals are in the Super Bowl. We haven't been able to say that in a while, and that hasn't been since the 80s.
89, I believe, was the last time they were at a Super Bowl. 86.
Yeah, they got whooped by Joe Montana's 49ers twice.
Yeah, so I mean, honestly, I think everything just went downhill. You honestly started to see vintage Andy Reid there, especially for Eagles fans, in the poor clock management, which the downfall just started right at halftime, or right before halftime, when there was 5 seconds left and they decided to go for it, which honestly, with 5 seconds, I don't think that's a terrible call, but that is a one read, throw it away. If your first read isn't there, you need to get rid of that ball to still give your kicker time to do something. And instead, he looked to his second read at Tyreek Hill and threw it to him in the backfield and gave him time to run the ball, which he shouldn't have done. That ball should have been straight at Tyreek's feet.
Yeah, and Eli Apple made a very big tackle, and which really, I think, set the tone for the second half, because in the first half, Eli Apple was getting cooked. Their defense was terrible. But then they set the precedence getting that big stop, and then in the second half, they came out very well. And Joe Burrow, let's just talk about his game. Possibly one of the greatest quarterback performances we've seen in a championship game in a while. 30 for 39, 446 yards, and 4 touchdowns. It's his second year in the league. It's the second.
Joe Shiesty right there.
That's insane. And let's just think about this. If he were to go on and win the Super Bowl, he would have had possibly one of the greatest 3 years a quarterback can have: Heisman, national championship, Super Bowl.
Which no quarterback has ever won all three.
No.
And he has a chance to do it in 3 years.
Yeah, that is ridiculous.
But yeah, I mean, the Chiefs just kind of melted down in that second half. They let the Bengals defense take advantage of them, which shouldn't have happened, because I don't think the Bengals defense had any business even competing with the Chiefs.
Yeah, but they were able to get pressure, and they were able to force Mahomes into really some stupid throws that really made you scratch your head. There could have been more than a few.
The Bengals had that underdog mentality.
Yeah, there could have been a lot more interceptions.
I also think, like, towards the end of the game, Patrick Mahomes was just trying to be a hero, and I think that hurt him, because he wasn't playing to win. He was just playing to win, but he wasn't playing safely. That's where I want to say.
Yeah. He reminds me of Brett Favre. When it goes great for him, it's amazing, and he makes these highlight plays. But when it goes bad for him, it really shows the chinks in the armor for him. That kind of gunslinging style, when you rely on your very strong arm, you can tend to make some really stupid decisions, and it showed there in that game.
But I mean, that's the Bengals coming out and winning that game. The kicker for the Bengals is living on cloud 9 right now.
So was Jamar Chase. 11 receptions, 266 yards, 3 touchdowns. He averaged almost 25 yards a catch.
That was last time they played the Chiefs. That was not the playoff game.
I looked up Chiefs versus Bengals playoff, and that game is the first that popped up.
I was going to say, I didn't think Joe Burrow threw for 400 yards.
No, he had 23 for 38, 250 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. Yeah, I don't know why that was the first game that popped up. My bad.
But yeah, I mean, they still didn't. I think it came down to the fact that the Chiefs' defense is not all that great, and Joe Burrow exposed it.
Yeah.
Did I tell you about what the kicker? His name is McPherson, but did I tell you what he said? What Joe Burrow said in that conference, the press conference after that game to send him to the AFC Championship?
What did he say?
So Joe Burrow was talking about the kicker and how he kicked the game-winning field goal to go to the AFC Championship, and they asked him something. He walks out. He takes one kick, like one kick in the air just to get his leg warmed up. He looks back at the sideline and he goes, well, looks like we're going to the AFC Championship, boys. And he went out and iced the game and beat the Titans. And then I just think it's funny because he then went out and did the same thing in overtime to beat the Chiefs. Which, did you see in overtime? They were playing that so safe because Joe Mixon had a chance at a touchdown and he just sat because he didn't want to do anything stupid.
Yeah. Did you? I don't know if you heard about this, but Bengals player Sam Hubbard, he's saying that during a podcast that he's gonna, if they win, he's gonna commemorate the Super Bowl to Harambe. Because he was cut at the Cincinnati Zoo.
Yeah, I didn't see that.
I saw that on Instagram.
Did you see that play? Did you see that play where Trey Hendrickson was chasing down Mahomes for a solid 6 seconds?
That was an insane play.
He stepped out of the game right after that. He's like, "Look, man, I am beat. Just give me a couple plays because I am done right now." He had him on a wild goose chase trying to get him.
And there was a few plays like that where the Bengals defensive line was really chasing Mahomes around. One of them, I believe one of them was in overtime, or no, it was just before overtime where it was a fumble, but the Chiefs recovered it. That was another play that was Mahomes running from the entire defensive line.
He was doing that a lot, and I'm especially at the end of the game because he, like I said, he was trying to be the hero, and he didn't just want to put the ball where it could be put properly.
And part of it is that the Chiefs' offensive line really is lacking. Same with their defense. Ever since they've lost a few guys, and it really shows. Their offensive line has consistently underperformed. I'm surprised the Bills didn't really take advantage of that. But yeah, I think they need help on defense and their offensive line. They have one of the best offenses in the league, but they just need more time.
I saw a video today where they're doing a imitation thing, and it's the room where all the eliminated quarterbacks go in, and Patrick Mahomes walks in, and Josh Allen's like, "Oh, finally, you're in here." And Patrick Mahomes like, "Yeah, we lost in overtime." Josh Allen's like, "Oh, how does it feel?" Patrick Mahomes like, "Well, actually, we got the ball first. They just played good defense. Maybe you should try it." Which, I mean, the Bills had the number 1 defense in the league, and so I don't know what happened there.
In the regular season, their defense might as well have been the Giants' defense in that game.
Well, I mean, both defenses might as well have been the defense.
The Chiefs' defense isn't supposed to be good. You expect that from
that's
the Bills.
Yeah. Moving over to the Rams game, that was a good game. That was an amazing game.
For a moment, I honestly thought that the 49ers were going to win.
I was scared
of 17-14 towards the end of the fourth. I'm like, okay,
it was 17-7.
How do we do it?
It was 17-7.
No, 17-14.
Because it was 17-7 in the fourth, because I was like, oh my gosh, the 49ers might actually win this. But then I was
And
like,
Matthew Stafford
I was like,
almost threw a
never
very
mind. It's Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah, who I do not want on the Commanders. Please no. But did you see that one throw Matthew Stafford had?
Yeah, to Jaquiski Tart.
It bounced out of his hands. That should have iced the game, but they got lucky.
I don't think it would have iced the game. I think the Rams defense was playing pretty solid overall because there was still like 9.5 minutes left. It would have made it harder.
Potential to be a game icing play in the long run.
But I don't think it would have iced the game. I still think they would have had a chance. But yeah, Jaquiski Tart should have held on to that ball. I don't even know. I want to know what happened to Stafford's arm on that play because that was way underthrown.
Yeah, it was a long throw, but we've seen him make longer. We saw him make longer the previous week.
But overall, yeah, that was a really good game. That was a well-played game. Both defensive lines were absolutely surging. There was nothing anyone could do.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a bad feeling about the Super Bowl. I don't think it's going to be close, but yeah, it's just looking at how the Rams defense played. It's going to be hard to see Joe Burrow succeeding, but we'll talk about that next week.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the Super Bowl next week, as that'll be a little bit closer, obviously, with the Super Bowl on the 13th.
But one of the biggest news stories to come out was Tom Brady retiring.
Oh yeah, that kind of went over our heads for a second. Yeah, I mean,
there was two waves of retirement posts. There was the first one where Adam Schefter, he just randomly said it and
jumped the gun.
Yeah, we weren't sure his sources, but then Brady confirmed it. And it's the end of an era. I mean, he's been playing for longer than we've been alive. He has more Super Bowls than every single franchise in the NFL. There's going to be some that say he's not the greatest, mainly because they're probably like 49ers fans. They just really hate Brady, but he's almost unanimously accepted as the greatest quarterback, possibly even player of all time.
So I don't think he can be deemed as I'm going to get some hate for this, but it is what it is. I don't really think he can be deemed as the greatest player of all time.
I don't either, but yeah.
And it's not because he wasn't good or anything. It's just because a skill position player and a quarterback are just two totally different. A quarterback is protected in the game. They do everything to make sure the quarterback doesn't get hurt and can do whatever they can to keep him the safest as they can. Whereas running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, they're putting their body on the line every single play. They're hitting someone every single play. The quarterback is just protected more. So I don't really see how you can compare a quarterback to a wide receiver in my case. So you could say he's the greatest quarterback of all time. To say he's the greatest player of all time, I don't think I can
agree with. But if you're looking at just Brady, I mean, he wasn't the smartest quarterback. I mean, I think Peyton Manning overall.
Over time, he was.
Yeah, but if you're just looking at it, I think Peyton Manning was a smarter quarterback because he was the running the offense, not Belichick. He didn't really have that Belichick figure. Yes, he had good coaches, and Brady, he didn't have the best arm. There was more athletic guys as well, but
they were really dink and dunk offense for the most part.
Yeah, he just had the stuff you can't teach. He had great teams at pretty much every year he was in the league, and
he obviously grew over. I wouldn't say he wasn't a smart guy. I mean,
I'm not saying that, but I'm saying there's been more purely smarter quarterbacks.
Well, there was a reason he was a 6th-round pick for those exact reasons. I mean, he obviously grew. I mean, he could read defenses like no other. He was, and then it got to the point where I'm sure he could call whatever plays he wanted, and no coach would say, "Stop! What are you doing?" He could do whatever he wanted. So I mean, yeah. I mean, that's just insane to go from a 6th-round pick to a 7-time Super Bowl champion. It's just, it's hard to grasp that. I honestly, even though I'm not a big Tom Brady fan, it's more surreal because I never thought he was going to retire. I mean, he's 44 and he was still playing. He said he was going to play until he's 45, and he did. But I just I think the league was doing whatever they could to protect him, to keep him in the league, because he was, again, I know I'm going to get hate for this, and I'm not having any hate towards Tom Brady. He's obviously the best quarterback of all time, but I mean, they did whatever they could to keep him in the league. I still think one of the biggest turning points in the Patriots Chiefs AFC Championship was Chris Jones going to block the pass and literally brushing Tom Brady's face mask and getting a roughing the passer call. I mean, there were just so many ways where I think some things were maybe tilted a little in his favor, but what are you going to do? Whatever happens, happens. But I mean, they were trying to keep him in the league as long as they could, and he did he stayed in as long as he could.
And it's not like he wasn't being competitive. He still had a very good season, and he probably could.
Oh yeah, he got better with age. He threw more touchdowns in his 40s than he did in his 20s.
Yeah, his last year, 5,300 yards, 43 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions. That is a career year for 99.9% of the quarterbacks in the league.
Yeah, and he did it as he was turning 45.
Yeah, that's a career year for 99.9% of like quarterbacks to have ever played.
Yeah. But I mean, overall, I just don't feel like it's, when I first saw it, I didn't believe it. And then he came out and said that it wasn't true. And then a couple of days later, he's like, yeah, I actually am going to retire. And I was like, oh, wow, really?
It was really strange.
So, I mean, it's still weird to me. It's going to be weird seeing next season with no Tom Brady, being that he's been there since we were born. So it's kind of weird, but it's going to happen. Like I said, no hate to Tom Brady. I said what I said, though, about some things, but there's obviously, he's the best to ever do it. What he could read on the field and what he did on the field is unmatched and will probably never happen again. There's the closest thing that we could see that we will see to that is Patrick Mahomes. And he's got to play better than what he did in that AFC Championship if he wants to be up there.
Yeah.
But hey, big man Nick Foles undefeated against Tom Brady.
Same with Eli Manning.
And Tom Brady, I don't know if he's undefeated, because I mean, like,
Super Bowls.
I'm talking like overall, Nick Foles has never been beaten by Tom Brady.
That's such a strange stat.
But yeah, and Tom Brady refused to shake Nick Foles' hand after the Super Bowl and after they beat him last year when Nick Foles was on the Bears.
I sent you a post that was from the year you guys won the Super Bowl. It was showing that Welcome to Championship Sunday, and the quarterback.
Oh yeah.
Case Keenum, Nick Foles, Tom Brady, and Blake Bortles. I mean, 3 of those guys
are all backups.
Yeah, I mean, Blake Bortles was in the AFC Championship. So was Case Keenum.
That was weird. And like it said on there, the weirdest thing was that Brady didn't win the Super Bowl that year.
Yeah, and somehow that Eagles team put up the most points against the Patriot team in the Super Bowl, and I still can't even name a wide receiver that was on your team. I struggled to name
on that Super Bowl team. On that Super Bowl team, it was Alshon Jeffrey and Torrey Smith and big man Nelson No Hands Aguilar.
Yeah, you wouldn't think that is a Super Bowl winning wide receiver core.
The only decent receiver at that point was Alshon.
Yeah, and your running backs, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, they weren't anything special.
It was Jay Ajayi, Corey Clement. Those were really the only 2 like big guys there.
They're not bad by any means, but they're not.
And but you know what the Eagles traded for Jay Ajayi that season?
Like a 6, I remember it.
I think it was a 5th round pick.
I saw that and I'm like, what are the Dolphins doing?
Yeah, they traded them for a bag of chips, essentially.
Pretty much, and one of the bag of chips that's just mostly air.
But yeah, I think we should move on to one of the other biggest topics of this week in Washington's new name. All right, so obviously you're a little bit more partial to this, being a Washington fan. It doesn't really matter to me, but what do you think about the name?
The jerseys are cool. I don't want to talk about the name. It sucks. I mean,
I think the name's generic, and
it has nothing to do with our team's previous history. Like in the hype package they released, they're talking about honoring the tradition. The only tradition is the colors. That's it. That's literally it. And for me, it's hard to think, like, they spent 19 months on this, and the name was leaked pretty much after the short list was, because of the if you looked up WashingtonCommanders.com, it took you to the team website.
I thought it was Admirals that took him.
It was one of those, but there was leaks of the patch. There's a patch which I actually think is pretty cool. It has all 5 of our championships, 2 from the before the Super Bowl era, and then our 3 that we won in the Super Bowl era. That was leaked. But yeah, whether it's Joe Theismann, like a few days ago, talking about they're going to get behind the Commander's name, or there was a banner that was shown inside FedEx Field just before the day before the release. Like the release was just underwhelming, and for me, it's hard to think, did they really like talk to anybody outside of the franchise other than players about the name? Were the people making decisions behind the doors? Like, it just, I know winning could make this a lot better, and if they go out and get a quarterback like Russell Wilson or Deshaun Watson, not Jimmy G, not Derek Carr, nobody like that, but if they go out and get a good quarterback, start winning, people are going to start to care about the name. But right now it just seems generic. I would have preferred something like the Warriors, Red Hawks, even Red Tails, which it really doesn't have anything to do with the area. And even if you want to go with something military, why not the Sentinels? That's a lot better than the Commanders, in my opinion. And before the name was even released, they've already come up with our joke name that you like, the cow, like our version of the Cowgirls. We're the commies now. I mean, it's going to be the Cowboys versus the commies, and
Cowgirls.
Yeah, sorry. But I just feel like in terms of the name, they could have done a lot better. Hopefully they'll win and people will start to care about it more, but there's so many other names I would have preferred. I mean, I'll be right back.
I
still think they could have gone with Warriors, and you just keep this helmet.
That reminds me of Florida State.
I mean, yeah, but this was around before Florida State, I believe. Don't quote me on that, or don't. But this was from the 60s or 70s. But I just feel like there's so many names that could give homage to our past without going back to Redskins.
For audio listeners, that was one of the old Redskins helmets, the maroon with the spear.
Yeah.
All right. My personal opinion, like I said, it doesn't really matter to me because I'm an Eagles fan, but I think personally, I think like you said, they botched it. And it's one, I think the name is generic. It's obviously better than football team, but like you said, I think it's generic. It doesn't really stand out. It was the Commanders was used for do you remember the AAF?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They copied the hashtag take command.
Yeah, I just think that it's generic. And I mean, the AAF the AAF had terrible names. And so I think that it's a generic name. I think Red Wolves, Red Hawks, those would have been cool.
Warriors, Sentinels, that would have been better. Warthogs. I mean,
I also think that they had a big missed opportunity. I think they could have used this to totally rebrand. Now, I'm not saying change colors or anything, but I'm saying if you look at what they did absolutely nothing new. They so the alternate jerseys, first off, they look exactly like the Steelers color rush, aside from a slight little red outline that you can't even see from a distance because it's so dark. It's dark red on black.
You could see them, but I actually like those jerseys.
I think it looks just like the Steelers jersey.
Yeah, but you could probably say that about a lot of jerseys. Like some look like others, but like if you were to take the Commanders out of the away one, I actually like these. I just think it needs burgundy somewhere. It would be a cool Cardinals jersey. I think the jerseys are the overall best part of it.
But
I do agree with you a little bit that they maybe should have gone a little more
it also
adventurous, but people seem to be most happy with the jerseys than they are the actual name.
I also think so. I think they could have used this to totally rebrand because the logo, it's the same logo that they had for the Washington football team with an outline. There was no
like the waste management W. You know, the green and yellow W and M you see on trash trucks.
Oh yeah.
That.
It's the same logo with an outline around it. So they had no creativity. Like I said, I think so the alternate, they definitely, I don't know if that's their color rush in air quotes or what it is, but that's definitely a step up from their mustard yellow alternates. But I like the red jerseys. I wish it was a solid, or the white jerseys. I wish the numbers were a solid red maybe. But
I wish it was solid red, and I wish there was a little bit of gold somewhere. It doesn't have to be a lot, but just a little.
Other than that, like they could have totally taken this opportunity to just rebrand, like maybe change up some fonts and stuff. Like when the Vikings went from their older design to the newer one, adding the little like spikes in the font and everything is just so crisper, changing the helmet so it's like matte purple. I'm trying to think what other teams just changed, like just totally rebranded recently.
And like the rebrand, you can take
the Titans. The Titans did it so well. The Titans' old jerseys compared to their new jerseys, I love their new jerseys, especially the baby blue.
Even the Rams.
The Rams was
a rebranding that took homage from the past. I mean, and I think they even could have like used a little bit from this helmet. If you're listening, this is the yellow Washington helmet with the solid red stripe down the middle and the R in the circle with the feather. I mean, you could just change that up a little bit and have a different helmet for each jersey design, which I don't know if it's legal yet.
Not yet. Next season, I think they're allowed to use different helmets.
Yeah, and I think that'd be cool if each of our jersey had a different helmet. I mean, nobody else is doing that and be able to stand out. I like the black ones. Yes, they look a little bit like the Steelers, but I actually like them. The only thing I think is strange about them in the helmet, there's a yellow W in the middle, like the forehead.
Yeah, I don't like that either.
For me, like I saw it on Terry McLaurin's helmet. I just and it looked better. I just think it might look weird on Jonathan Allen's helmet, which is a more classic helmet.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't have any air vents in it or anything like that, but
I don't know. I think totally
but the name they could have done so much better. And if they it seems like they didn't really listen to the fans a lot. It seems like the people,
I think it was a missed opportunity.
It just seems like the people making the decisions were on Dan Schneider's payroll or are friends with him.
The Bucks are another one that did it right.
Yeah, I mean,
when they switched from those, like, I personally don't think their old jerseys were terrible. A lot of people did, huh?
The orange ones with
the ones. I'm talking about the ones right before this one, like the ones with like kind of blocky letter, or actually, it's not as. It was kind of looked like a digital clock. Those
one with like the brown, like the brown helmet, the red flag.
Yeah, hey, I'll look up the old jerseys. Like I like that they brought back the old, not that, these ones. I'll share my screen for you to see real quick. These ones. Oh, wait. There you go. These right here.
Yeah.
Orange and the gray and like this. Like they were ones that did it right. They switched back to their old jerseys, the gray and those look nice, but they did that right. I think Washington just had a missed opportunity here.
Yeah, and like you don't have to create something entirely new. Just take homage from things that the fans haven't seen in a long time. The
I hope
maroon jerseys with the spear we haven't seen since the early 2000s. These we haven't really seen since. I mean, I think there was an alternate in the early 2000s, but these we haven't seen since like the 60s. I mean, I think the black is a whole new idea. I like it. The white ones, I think they look cool. They just need a little bit more, but it's new. The only thing I don't like about the home ones, I think the Commanders looks like just
too
above
big.
the numbers.
Too
It
big.
looks a little too big, and it doesn't look good. I don't think it looks very good.
But yeah, I think it was just a missed opportunity for them.
Yeah, and the reveal, that was a missed opportunity as well. I mean, like I've heard some people saying that it was going to be a soft release, but it would have been so much better, and I think you would have gotten a lot better feedback if people had known absolutely nothing before. There was no leaks, there was no Joe Theismann revealing the name or anything like that. I just think they could have done a lot better considering they had 19 months to do this. Just seems like they didn't really put as much effort into it as they could.
Agreed. With that, let's step right into the last little bit here. We're gonna dissect each. We'll dissect each side of the ball for each team. We'll make it a 4-part series. So we're gonna start off with the Washington offense, starting off with their quarterback. Give me your insight. What do you think? Give me what you thought performed well, like what happened this season and what you want to see in the future.
I mean, Taylor Heineke, considering this is his second year starting, he didn't do bad. But
Agreed.
The way our defense played, we kind of forced him into a bad position where he had to win games, not manage them. I mean, if our defense had played a lot better, then I think people would be saying, all right, he did his job. He kept us out of stupid mistakes. If our defense did good, but since our defense didn't, we really kind of forced him to do something that he wasn't really meant to do, which is try and win games by himself. And you saw that with the amount of interceptions he threw. It just understand, like, he could have played a lot better. He has a weak arm. Our offense, it needs more weapons in terms of our wide receivers. We need a new offensive coordinator. I think Scott Turner is done. He doesn't know how to scheme a good offense. We need to move on. We need to find somebody new.
The quarterback. I mean, overall, I think Heineke played decent for being Heineke. I mean, he was an undrafted free agent from ODU in Virginia, which is not a football powerhouse. The only other NFL player I can think of to come out of there was Travis Fulgham, the GOAT for about 4 weeks in Philly. But I mean, he was an undrafted free agent from ODU. He was not expected to do anything huge, and he came out and he performed well. He was suitable for what you guys needed for now. And I think had your defense played a little bit better, that he would have been able to maybe get you guys to the playoffs. But like you said, since the defense kind of failed,
screw him over.
Yeah, it was hard.
Like,
do you have?
He threw 3,400 yards, 20 touchdowns, 15 interceptions. If our defense played better, I think he could have kept his interceptions under 10, maybe a little less than 20 touchdowns and maybe more rushing yards. But that just didn't how it worked out. And I think we saw the weakness in Scott Turner's scheming. We forced his hand because we really had to be an offensive team a lot because our defense just wasn't playing good. So, yeah, I just think Scott Turner needs to go. Heineke, if our defense played better, he would have done his job. I think he's going to be a good backup because he could come in, he could win, he can keep things from getting really screwy, for lack of a better term. But I think in the off season, we really need to go, not all out, but we're going to put a lot into this. For me,
it's tracker free agent.
Yeah, for me, you either have to get Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson, or draft somebody young.
Yeah,
nothing else. I don't want
Jimmy Wilson's G. Kind of old now.
I don't want Jimmy G because he's played almost the same amount of time as Heineke. He's older and he has injury issues. and I don't think he's that good of a quarterback because Deebo Samuel had an amazing season.
If you
Kyle
want
Shanahan,
young, you don't want Russell Wilson.
huh?
Said if you want young, you don't want Russell Wilson. Russell
Yeah,
Wilson's 33.
I'm leaning more towards Deshaun Watson. That's if all of the controversy has been cleared up and he's good to play. I know he's sat out for a year, but we would probably have him for more time. And yeah, and his legs are still there. I'm like, Wilson's are still there, but not as fresh. Yeah, I just think we need to go for somebody like that or draft somebody and
Now,
ease them into it.
here's a follow-up question. You say you want to see if they can get Watson if everything clears up. What are you willing to? What do you think that they're willing to be giving up for Watson? Because the Houston wanted denied, I believe it was 3 first-round picks and then like a second and a third-round pick and 2 roster players from the Bears.
I think they have. I think they're gonna clear up. I think the price tag is gonna be better. At least our first and second this year. I think Matt Ioannidis, he's better than 2 roster players because he can go somewhere else and be very good. He's a very good player. So maybe a first, 2 second in him, I think, is the max that we should be willing to give away. For Russell Wilson,
I don't think
Russell
that's
Wilson a little less. I think Wilson would be easier to get, but it depends on if Wilson wants, like, is eyeing here. Same with Watson.
I think you guys should be looking in the draft. This year's draft is going to be rough. There's not really many.
There's not a lot of good quarterbacks, and the ones that we're looking at is some guy from Liberty who I don't think.
Yeah, Mark. I think. What is his name? It's something Willis.
Yeah. Malik Willis.
Malik Willis. Yes.
Yeah.
But I know he's kind of a, but that's another player where he's like, it's a little iffy because he went to Liberty, and Liberty, again, not a Power 5 school.
Yeah. For me, when drafting a quarterback, I'd prefer that they have more than 1 year of college, like, because we saw that Haskins thing. I think he really screwed himself. When he came out as a freshman, but Malik Willis, he has been in 4 years of college football. He was in Auburn for 2 years, but didn't start. But at least he's been in a very good school. But if you look at what he did in Liberty, 27 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, 2,800 yards. That I'm worried about that considering Liberty, the strength of schedule. I'm just not sure about that. I just think this year, in terms of quarterback draft class, it's not one of the best.
Yeah. This next part, I think we could skip over for the most part because this was the bright side of your roster and running back with Antonio Gibson doubling as a wide receiver, finding a diamond in the rough in Jarrett Patterson. I mean, the running backs were overall pretty solid.
And J.D. McKissick, yeah. I just think we need to re-sign J.D. McKissick, and then if our offensive line can stay healthy, then we'll be really good. The only thing I want Antonio Gibson to work on is he needs to get better in carrying the ball. I think he doesn't do a good enough job when he feels contact of really tightening up the ball. He needs to get better at that, and his ball carrier vision really could get better. I think he's really missed some holes, and I just think he needs to improve on that. But yeah, McKissick we need to re-sign because he's a great second back to have. Same with Patterson.
Going on to the wide receivers, this is kind of a rough one because after Terry McLaurin, there was really a big drop with Curtis Samuel getting paid. How much is Curtis Samuel getting paid? 10 mil?
Yeah, and he was injured almost the entire year, so we need him to stay healthy and actually perform.
What do you think of Diami Brown?
He showed moments where he looked really good, but they're rookies, and I think they're gonna be able to naturally progress. But Heineke, he isn't really the greatest of throwers. Like I said, he's more of a game manager, and it seemed like Turner was trying to do too much with what he had. He didn't really utilize it to the best of what he had. If we had Curtis Samuel, then we could kind of use him in like a Debo Samuel kind of role. Our team would be more suited towards the shorter game, and then you sometimes send McLaurin out really far. But yeah, I just think we need to bring in probably another receiver, whether that's through the draft, or like through free agency. If Curtis Samuel can stay healthy, then I think we'll get a lot better. He only played 5 games, only had 6 receptions, so we can't judge him too much. Hopefully he can get healthy in the offseason.
And here's some of the top receivers in free agency right now. Devonta Adams, Chris Godwin, Mike Williams from the Chargers, just because Mike Williams is kind of a basic name. Allen Robinson, Michael Gallup, Antonio Brown, if you want a diva. OBJ.
He's going to go to Baltimore.
Juju, DJ Chark. After that, you're starting to get into some iffy areas.
Yeah, but you just mentioned that's a lot of good wide receivers that you can be able to get. There's a lot of options, and if we're able just to bring in one, that would certainly help our offense.
Wow. I'm looking at this. This is a Pro Football Focus, and I'm looking at the top free agent wide receiver rankings. Projected contract for Devonta Adams, $23 million a year for 4 years.
Who's pay him that?
A team who needs a wide receiver. Because, I mean, Devonta Adams is arguably the best receiver in the league. So, I mean, I could see it.
But that's a lot of money.
It is. But Dak Prescott's getting paid $40 million. So, with that, let's move over to tight end because
this is a big issue.
I'm going to be completely honest. I don't know a single. Actually, no. You got Ricky Seals-Jones and what's his name?
Bates and Logan Thomas.
Logan Thomas. That's the one I'm thinking of.
We need to bring in a tight end. Logan Thomas, he really struggled to stay healthy. John Bates, he's more of a blocking, but he had some good routes and catches. Ricky Seals. He did decent considering at the beginning of the year he didn't expect to be a starter. But yeah, in terms of our offense, I think it's our biggest weak spot behind quarterback. And hopefully Samus Reyes, after a year being with the team, then maybe he's learned the game enough that we can start to get him some on-field reps.
Yeah, tight end's a big need for you guys. And finishing up with the O-line, what do you see with the O-line?
That was one of our best areas of the team. According to Pro Football Focus, we were 6th in the league, and that's with Samuel Cosme, Wes Schweitzer, and Chase Roulier being injured for a decent amount of the year. And considering how the other guys picked up the slack, we did very good. The only thing I'd maybe do to this, bring in another guy through the draft, but I think we did really good. And if we're able to keep our unit healthy and we're able to progress, our running game should really start to get going.
Yeah, I think the offensive line for you guys was just pretty put together pretty nicely. Eric Flowers has kind of renewed his career in Washington.
He's been doing very well. When we first got him, I was really skeptical because what he did in New York was bad.
And Miami, he was terrible.
So,
but with that, that's all we got for football. Next week, I think we'll look at the Eagles' offense next week. Go offense, and defense. So we'll look at the Eagles' offense next week. Going over to hockey, the Flyers have won their first game of 2022.
Woohoo!
Yes.
And we're only a month in.
Well, they won one in January, so we could be happy there. And the Flyers have won their first back-to-back games. I'm going to get the dates because they were a while apart, but they have won their first back-to-back games since the new year, or since 2021. And why can't I pull up the full schedule? There we go. The last time they won back-to-back games prior to beating the Kings and the Jets in these previous two games, it was Ottawa on December 18th, winning 4-3 in overtime, and Seattle on December 29th, winning 3-2 in overtime. That was the last time they won back-to-back games, and then they went on a 13-game losing streak and then broke it here against the Kings. When the Flyers beat the Kings, I was acting like the Flyers just won the cup because I was so happy because the winning streak was over. That's how
Losing
bad.
streak was over, you mean?
Yeah, that's what I said. The losing streak was over.
I think you said winning.
Wow. But yeah, it was so bad. It was terrible to go through that. But coming up, the Flyers have, I might have mentioned this last week, but I'll mention it again. The Flyers, of their 18 upcoming games, 13 of them are at home. So they got a big home ice advantage coming up. And they really have a lot of breaks to just kind of sit back, practice, and make sure they stay refreshed.
I still don't think.
Oh yeah, there's still nothing gonna happen. I mean, the schedule that they have coming up is rough. They have Detroit and then Detroit again, Pittsburgh, Washington, Carolina, St. Louis, and then Washington again for the month. So yeah, I mean, it all comes down to what's gonna happen. You're really looking at the offseason now and the trade deadline because those are the two biggest questions.
Claude Giroux have played his last game in Philly?
No, because the trade deadline isn't until early March. So he has at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Can't happen during the All-Star break.
Huh? Well, they're not going to trade him until the trade deadline because if someone comes chasing for him now, then the Flyers hold the leverage. So the general managers are making calls. They're talking to other people. Also, Claude Giroux still has to waive his no-move clause. So right now, if the Flyers wanted to trade him, they couldn't anyway because it hasn't been waived. So he hasn't played his last game in Philadelphia. They have until the All-Star break, and like I said, they're going to wait until the last minute so that they can get everything in return. He's a guy that they can get a draft pick for and probably another player, like a prospect with the way that he's been playing. So I think they're going to wait as long as they can to make sure, because they're going to get a couple teams asking. They're going to look through all the choices and pick who gives them the best offer. With that, I actually wanted to go over the standings real quick because we haven't done that in a while. The Hurricanes have overtaken the first spot in the Metro with 5 games in hand on the Rangers. They're 31-9-2 with 64 points. Rangers 30-13-4 with 64 points. Pittsburgh's climbed up into the third spot, 27-11-8 with 62 points. Washington has dropped all the way down to the fourth spot at 25-13-9 with 59 points. Columbus 20-22-1 with 41 points. The Islanders 16-17-6 with 38 points, with 6 games in hand on the Flyers, who are 15-22-8 with 38 points. And New Jersey in the basement 15-25-5 with 35 points. What's happened to the Capitals?
We've had some rough games. We've actually had some really good games as of recent. We went to Dallas and we faced our former friend Braden Holtby. We gave him 5 goals. Then we had a really good and crucial OT win against the Penguins. We did lose the Oilers last night, but I think it wasn't that bad of a game. We were down 3-0, came back to tie it, but ultimately lost. But we did that without Ovi. But it just seems like we've gotten pretty unlucky recently. some defensive lapses, and we've been able to put the puck on the net, but haven't gotten some lucky bounces. I think this break could be really key for us. Ovi's going to be getting a break because he's out of the All-Star game because he's sick. I'm going to say that because he skipped the last 4 All-Star games. So, and Tom Wilson is actually replacing Ovi. So Tom Wilson is an All-Star, which is very funny to think about. But yeah, I just think the team needed a break and become re-energized and start winning some more games.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the schedule here. Yeah, I mean, you guys were kind of starting off hot and dropped down quite substantially to as of late. Where's Ovi standing in the points? I know you've been on top of that.
He's 3rd or 4th, I believe.
That is not one of it.
Because Huberdeau has really jumped up, which he's kind of come out of nowhere. Give me a second. He's 5th. But he has 58 points, though, which is nothing to be mad about. He's behind Kadri with 60, McDavid with 60, Draisaitl with 63, and Huberdeau with 64.
I was listening to something earlier, and someone asked if the Flyers should offer Matthew Tkachuk an offer sheet, which, you know why offer sheets are never done anymore for the most part? Obviously, they're done occasionally. I think Kakanyemi just signed an offer sheet to go to Carolina. That is such a fun name to say.
What a name.
Yes, Barry Kakanyemi. But I believe he signed an offer sheet to go to Carolina. But offer sheets are so hard because of the fact that they not only do you have to sign a guy for big money, but you also have to give up draft picks, which is something that you don't want to do, especially in the Flyers situation right now. So that's something that you don't want to do. I personally would love Matthew Tkachuk to come to Philadelphia. I don't think it's going to happen. Another player that I would love to see come to Philadelphia is Johnny Gaudreau. Again, I don't think it's going to happen. Everyone assumes that since Johnny Gaudreau is from Philadelphia, that he wants to go back to Philadelphia. I'd like to see him back, but I'm not really sure if he would be willing to come here, especially with the way that the team's looking right now.
And I'd like to see Connor McDavid on the Caps. Doesn't mean it's going to happen.
All right, that's not as realistic, bud. Johnny Gaudreau is a free agent, UFA this season, so he could technically come to Philadelphia if they offered him the right.
Why would you go to Philly though? Just
because there's still potential there.
The team's in a rough spot.
It is, but it's still got potential because the team, you cannot look at that roster and tell me that the team is bad. Just looking at the roster, not having
the standings and tell you that.
No, not looking at any of the standings or anything. Looking at the roster, it is not a bad roster. Correct?
Looking at the stats, yes, you can.
Okay, now looking at the standings, yes, it's not. They're not playing
stats,
great.
As in the stats each player has.
Standing stats, they're not playing great. But I mean, there's potential for the team. I don't know how Ryan Ellis dropping off was such a, because one player should not totally tear down a team. And that's what happened.
Matt Niskanen, that shouldn't have really torn you guys down last year.
So I don't think Matt Niskanen retired. I think that was a big cause, but I think it was the major cause was the fact that they didn't have a number one D-man across from Ivan Provorov, because you had so many people fluctuating in and out of that first D pairing. So, because defense, the biggest thing about playing in a defensive pair is having chemistry, and Ivan Provorov could never get chemistry with the people he was with because he was constantly having new partners across from him. So that's something that you got to deal with. Now, something I heard earlier also is this is probably the point where you start looking at who's in Lehigh and who you're going to start bringing up to play in the NHL for the next little bit.
You might as well start calling up guys, get them playing time, get them NHL experience, so hopefully they can start performing better next year.
Yeah,
I think
and I
you're
mean,
at that point in your team, you just need to start calling up guys, even if you think they're really ready or not. Start getting them experience.
I'm just excited to see. I'm just excited to see Cam York in the future.
They're about to say Neely.
Cam Neely.
That
That sounds familiar. Who is that?
He was a really good forward for the Bruins like a little bit ago.
You know who's been playing really well? Carter Hart. Still,
your defense hasn't, but Carter Hart is playing good. But your
Dude,
defense is really leaving him.
Carter Hart stopped a 2-0 against the Jets the other day.
Yeah, and
I wish I could see who the 2-0 was from, like who was on the 2-0 with him. But I mean, still stopping a 2-0 is impressive.
That's impressive. But how did the Jets lose to you guys?
The Flyers are a good team. The Flyers are clearly better than the Jets. It's the only logical.
You know that isn't true.
It's the only logical explanation. Let's see, I'm going to try to, but I mean, Carter Hart has been playing lights out. Carter Hart gave up an early goal to Kyle Connor, where they just kind of let Kyle Connor slip through, which was actually on Travis Konechny, because I don't know how you let Kyle Connor through. He's scored 25 goals this season, but he slipped through, and then after that, and that was 25 seconds into the game. After that, did not let another goal in for the rest of the game. This is what I want to see, Game Center. It was in the second period. Oh, it was 48 seconds in. They don't have that video up. How do you not have that video up? I'll try to find it as we're talking a little bit more. But yeah, overall, the Flyers just really haven't been playing great. There's some potential starting to look up, though, as they're playing a little bit more. They're starting to win a couple games, but last time they did that, they went on another 13-game losing streak. So I can't get too excited over anything.
Go for 14, Tristan.
I think that's okay. I don't think anyone wants to see that.
Okay, only 12.
Did you see where the why can't I think? Oh yeah, 13 was a why can't I think? Wow. 13 was a franchise high on a losing streak. Yeah, not exactly the record books you want to be seeing there.
No, that's the record you want.
I think with that, though, it's looking like that's going to be it. Is there anything else you have to say?
Got off their butt and ended the lockout.
Yeah, MLB still being still locked out, and so not giving us anything to talk about. But other than that, is there anything else you have to ask or say?
No, that's pretty much it. Can't believe I have to say I'm a Commanders fan now, but hopefully I'll get used to it.
Better than the football team, right?
Is it?
I would say it is. But with that, we are going to finish it off there. You guys can follow our Instagram at BLInTheDC. Where you can DM us questions and comments. You can email us at BLInTheDC@gmail.com. You can email us questions, comments. You can rate us and review us on Apple and Spotify now. And if you can leave questions and comments on the Apple reviews, we can answer them in here. And with that, we're going to end it there, and we will see you guys next week.
See you later.